And I'm going to split my sharing into three parts. The first part will be about how a music media like Bandwagon started. And secondly, I will share some very honest challenges that media faces. And thirdly, we'll talk about how we can work together to cover some of the meaningful stories that are here from some of you here. So yeah, we go to the next slide. So I started in about 2009, 2010, really going actively for gigs. I would pass by your pubs like, your Sir Gihos, your Route 196, 19 East. We have the same things in Singapore, and I would go to the outside and I'll be taking pictures of all these places. No, wait, actually back then we didn't have smartphones, so I couldn't take pictures. You have these, anyone here used like a Nokia phone, and you can only store 30 text messages on there? So yeah, I used to store all this live music information here. And I figured with the internet, we should be putting all this information online instead. And that was one of the things that sparked me thinking about Bandwagon. Next slide. So believe it or not, this was me in my younger days when I was about 19, 20. Yeah, thank you very much for your cheers. Yeah, so it was my cooler self, and I was part of an alternative rock band, and we created our own music. And I found that for artists, struggling artists like us, it was hard to get featured on press and reach people who like our kind of niche music. And so that was another reason why I thought of something like Bandwagon. Next. So this is the beautiful city of Helsinki. I was there as a student for about 5 months, and I traveled to about 10 cities in Europe. And in every city that I went to, I would search live music Barcelona, live music Paris, and I would find all these sites that are of different languages. And there was once I wanted to go to the biggest jazz bar in Helsinki. So I happened to be on a date, and we had to take a bus for 30 minutes at 0 degrees Celsius, and we had to walk for 30 minutes. And I was so excited to bring this girl to this jazz bar. And when we reached there, I looked, and how come there was no music at all? There was no sound. So I began to look through the window. I took off my gloves, I wiped the windows, and I looked into the unit that was supposed to be the jazz club. Lo and behold, it was no longer there, and it had become a fishing shop. So, needless to say, that was our last date. And that taught me an important lesson, that we need reliable and extensive gig information. So that all these three stories culminated in me starting a very simple web page. I learned to code. I spent 2 months learning a bunch of frameworks, Ruby on Rails, AngularJS, which powers Google Docs today. And I created a very simple one-page gig directory, which you'll see later in the next slide. Yeah, so, next. Yeah, so these were the early iterations of Bandwagon. If you go on your mobile phones and you search Bandwagon Asia, you'd see it looks very, very different. But when I first started, it literally was a spreadsheet of all the gigs that I could find. So bands that you'll be seeing here today, tonight. Yeah, I went online and I basically researched and aggregated data mined all this info. And it went from one site to another. So if you see the third site here, Bandwagon, it's kind of a copy of Google. I figured, if you want to be the best, you got to copy the best. So I kind of made it like Google. But people's feedback was that the logo looked like a Western food stall, like a place you get fish and chips and chicken chop and stuff. So I rebranded. So, it started as just a site where we couldn't even host photos because it was a very basic site. It was very lightweight. So you could carry this with you, and whenever you're out looking for gigs, you just type in the kind of music you like say metal, or you search rock, or you search a particular venue, and we show you what's going on. So yeah, this was 11 years ago, and today Bandwagon is drastically different, and I'll tell you more about it in a bit. Next slide. So when I first started, back then, there were no Facebook pages. Instagram was still largely used for people to post their own personal things. There was no dedicated music media in Singapore. And more importantly, I found that there was no one that was looking regionally. Today we speak to our friends. We heard from them from Taiwan. I know we have other friends from Malaysia, from Korea here as well. So I noticed that no one was looking regionally in really spotlighting music in this region. And that was what we wanted to do at Bandwagon. Next slide. So our vision is very simple. We have a team of 12 in Singapore, and we have 2 in Philippines here, Camille, yeah, everyone knows Camille here, Cara and Madeline is here as well. So our vision is very simple. It's to champion and to spotlight music in Asia. So why the word champion? It's because we want to get people thinking about local music, about local culture in all these different countries. And why spotlight? It's because we really want to shine the attention on them. We want people to discover their stories, how they started, what goes on behind the music. And we see that as a complementary role alongside your digital service providers or distributors. We see our media role as really helping to tell meaningful stories. Next. So I'm going to tell you a bit about how Bandwagon engages audiences. And if over here there are any other music media sites, I hope maybe some of this can be some inspiration. Yeah, so let's go to the next slide. So one of the things we do is we break the latest stories. So one of which is a Four of Spades. Anyone's a fan here of Four of Spades? Okay, 2 people. Yeah, Four of Spades. I mean, they're a really hot band in the Philippines, and actually we're bringing them for a show in Singapore in November. So they were opening for Panic at the Disco, and our hardworking team found out about this at like midnight. And was it midnight or morning? And like just within 10 minutes of that announcement, this article was up on our site. And you could see, I think the number is a bit grainy here, but like about 5,200 shares on this article about them opening for Panic at the Disco. So this is something as a media we want to do. We want to share what's been happening, create the hype for these artists. We feel that that's a way that we can complement, we can help them to also level up their perception amongst the public population. Next. We also try to add the Asian context. Anyone here is a fan of Troye Sivan? Okay, slightly more, 4 people. So, as Bandwagon, we have access to these artists. We have some time with them when they're in the region. So what we did was we sat down with him and we gave him a bunch of tracks that were done by Singaporean and also Philippines artists. And we got him to listen to it and to give his comments. So let's watch this video. Yeah, you can just click and it'll start. Do we have the music?
Hey, I'm Troye Sivan and you're watching Bandwagon TV.
Can we have it louder?
So this first song is by a local artist.
Okay, let's click to the next slide because I zoomed in
Okay,
on the
I
part
met
which is the
Ling
Philippines
yesterday,
artist.
and so I'm really excited to hear.
Anyone here a fan of BP Valenzuela? Okay, slightly more, 6 people. Yeah, so we had her play in Singapore as well, and so we got Troy to listen to her music, and let's see what he said.
Is this from the Philippines too? Cool.
So the beauty about these videos, it gave the artists the chance to see themselves being heard by an international artist. And in some cases, it's actually sparked some friendships. So we've done this with a bunch of bands like Imagine Dragons, like The Cooks, like Incubus. And it's something that we roll out as a content series. Okay, if you like this video, you can watch it online on Bandwagon TV on YouTube. Next slide, please. So let's give it up for music in Asia. Woo!
I think
okay, so next
you hit
slide.
the nail on the head.
Okay, so this is another type of content that we do. So we try to keep it engaging, and on Bandwagon every month we get about 200 to 300,000 unique readers on our site. So what we did was to crowdsource fans and use the opportunity with bands to give them a chance to ask these artists questions. So this was Lainey. I know John from Kapos is here. They brought Lainey here to Philippines. And so we had a chance to interact with them. And I'll just roll this video so you could see how the video, how the video with the band went. Next slide. Okay, she's from the Philippines.
I think that'd be a super nice thing to do, but it's kind of one of those things if you do it once, you have to start kind of doing it a lot.
There's your career.
And so you can either be in Laney or you can go
Sing.
go sing. So sorry, but no.
Love you though.
Hi guys, my name is Ashley and I'm from the Philippines. My question to you is, so far what can you say about the places you recently performed at, including the Philippines? And by the way, Manila misses you so much and mahal namin kayo sobra, bye.
You're so sweet. You're adorable. Philippines was unbelievable. It exceeded our every expectation. This whole kind of Asian run really has been so cool. We had no idea we'd sell out really anything, and most of it is completely sold out.
Hi Danny, I'm Charmaine from Singapore.
Yeah, so you get the idea of the concept. You know, we gave fans the chance to ask the band's questions and also see themselves in the video. So we crowdsourced these questions from all around Asia. So I guess if some of you are here today and you do see, you start following us on social media, feel free to pop in your questions as well. And we really want to use the chance with all these artists to create more meaningful content for the people in Asia. Next. So we also share the inside scoop, and you know, because of Bandwagon, we are focused on music. So I guess compared to many press, we are able to go very deep and create very good relationships with different parts of the industry. So anyone was in Singapore for the Guns N' Roses show? Okay, yeah, no one. But basically, it was a show that really hit international headlines because I think there were a few things that kind of went sour, and a lot of fans, I mean, I saw even press in Middle East were writing about it. So it was quite a big hoo-ha that happened in Singapore. So everyone was slamming the concert promoter, talking about how bad a job they had done. And I remember it was 8 p.m. the day after the show, and I got a call from the promoter, and he rang me up sounding really frantic, and I was like, hey, what happened? And he said, hey, did you see all the bad press that I've been getting? It's really affecting my business and all my relationships with agents and with managers. And he says, hey, I just wanted the chance to put my side of the story because every press was just looking to criticize me no matter what I say. And there's no one that's been willing to hear my side of the story. And so that night, it was a Sunday night, I called my editor and said, hey, Daniel, could we do this article with him? And he said yes. At 10 p.m., we had the interview, and by Monday morning, 8 a.m., this article was live. And this article was then shared by multiple media, including the BBC, who referenced this article in their coverage. And it actually gave the concert promoter a chance to share his side of the story and what contributed to some of the issues that the 40,000 fans who were in Singapore to watch Guns N' Roses actually faced. So this is an example of what we want to do at Bandwagon to really give the music industry a voice. And so for some of you who are here, you think you have very meaningful stories or you want to share something that you feel maybe in the public space is misunderstood, we are here for you. Next. So now I'm going to go into the second portion of the talk, which is to talk about some challenges of the music media, of media and especially music media. So we're going to be really upfront, really candid here with you, and we're going to have some time for questions if you do have some further questions about what I'm sharing. Next. One of the main issues that that's plagued the media industry is the presence of clickbait. I'm sure many of you are familiar with this term, where right now article titles, even video titles, have to be kind of shocking because of so many different kinds of mediums that are hitting people on their social media. It's reporters and journalists are starting to have to really sensationalize their articles. And that means sometimes focusing on very minor, very gossipy areas of music that actually the creators don't really care about. Like if you ask the musicians, they're not so interested in you writing about their love life or their latest fling. They're more interested in you talking about their music. So this has been an issue, not just for Bandwagon, but other music media and media platforms that we know as well. And in trying to push original content, trying to push meaningful content, at the same time trying to balance keeping the headlines representative of the content while still attracting visitors. Next. The second issue, and we're going to be very real about this, is the direct access between artists and fans. So now with social media, with so many different mediums you see here, from DSPs, to direct social channels, to even promoters, and you have like Shazams and YouTubes. Artists don't need media like they did before, where in the past, people like Pitchfork, Rolling Stone, they were gateways for people to discover. Like before I want to test out this music, before I buy this record, I want to know whether this is going to be a good buy. But now with streaming, people can hear it directly. They can hear directly from the artists. So the role of the music media has no longer been like it was before, where it was a gatekeeping role. And now it's more maybe a supplementary resource, where maybe it's not as needed as before. So in terms of media platforms, that affects us as well in terms of the opportunities, because now artists go direct to fans. So how do we actually evolve in the light of this situation and this landscape? Next. The third thing, and I think many of you here experience it as well, I'm sure everyone here runs a social channel, and that is shorter attention spans and also more selective viewing, depending on the apps you're at. Right now, TikTok is gaining in popularity here. We've got Twitter, you've got Instagram, your Chinese social media sites, there are a whole bunch of them as well. So people are very selective in the types of things we see. And so that really changes the game for content creators like us and publishers, because we have to think about the types of platforms that we want to look at. And bearing in mind that all these different platforms, there's a different way of using it. You probably need different experts who are good at using different platforms, and so that means more resources. And if you know today, the media industry is challenged in terms of which platforms they adopt. And you see my next point as well, which is actually about monetization. Next. Yeah, with monetization, in the past, people were able to sell, magazines. They have a fixed number of magazines that they can say that they've printed and distributed at different places. Whereas now, it's no longer about that. Now you are benchmarked digitally. And that means the ad revenue you get is much lower than what you used to receive. Like in Singapore, for 1,000 views, you get about $3 Singapore dollars. So that's about maybe 100 pesos. Yeah, so for, let's say if you do 100,000 page views, if you do the ads on your own, that's like maybe just $300, which you can't even afford an intern. An intern in Singapore is maybe double that, yeah. So you get the idea that monetization has really changed. You see press starting to do paywalls where you actually have to pay for content. So I think you see Wall Street Journal, you see Bloomberg, Tech in Asia, they're starting to do that. And whether people are willing to pay for music content is also another further question that as an industry we really need to think about. My personal take from Bandwagon is that we are probably not there yet. And so that's why on our end, all the content is still free. On our end, we sell all ads direct, so we don't go through Google Ads. So that allows us to charge a little bit more, be a little bit more premium, and service clients in a little bit with more of a human touch and have a bit more a service-orientedness to it. So next. So what does the future look like for media? Not just music media, but even other online media. Next. Our perspective is that you will start to see sites focus on lesser covered genres. And some people in the content space call this the long tail, which is all the niche, people consider niche genres that if you add together, maybe it consists a lot. So for example, maybe right now, if pop is really gaining popularity, so maybe a publication would try to focus on metal or maybe hip hop. And so publications are having to go to these niche genres of music because that's where people are more curious, that's where there's a lack of content, or maybe there are particular types of fans who are interested in particular types of content. The second way we see the media moving forward is unique ways of presenting music content. And that is using digital in very new ways through the website or even through social media and using different tools to help to bring up new facets of the content. And I'll share some examples with you shortly. Next. So this is an example of cover stories. Anyone here love Sandwich? Okay, I think this is the most popular band so far. So Mike, I think next year we're going to have Sandwich here at Sonik Philippines. But yeah, so this is something we do at Bandwagon where we bring the band out for an extended period of time. We bring them out for a meal, we follow them for some of their favorite activities. We do a specialized photo shoot with them, and we really talk about their stories. So for Sandwich, this is a 3-part series that we really talked to them about how they started, how is it like evolving in the Philippines music scene, and where do they see themselves going forward. So this is an example of story. I think you see Pitchfork using very unique layouts as well, graphics, GIFs, kind of one-pager parallax scrolling type of websites. So these are examples of how sites like us are kind of evolving. Next. This is called Bandwagon Doodles, started by Camille and her team here. What we got was we got bands to actually draw out their answers. So for this, we spoke to Ben and Ben. Anyone fans of Ben and Ben? Yeah, they're playing, right? So we got Ben and all 9 members of Ben and Ben to tell their stories through instruments and interests. So for every question, we set them down in like a table like what you're sitting here, and we gave them pieces of paper, and they had to answer it by drawing. And we actually published all their artwork online. And fans were also able to receive this artwork. So if they shared the article, they commented, they would be selected and they will win that drawing that Ben and Ben did. So we've done this with various bands as well over the years. Next. Bandwagon roll call. Okay, so this is interesting because, you know, our mobile phone is our companion. We take pictures everywhere we go about things that matter to us. So for this Bandwagon roll call, what we did was instead of them answering us through text and us transcribing the answers and putting them online, what we did was we got them to answer through pictures on their mobile phone. So for this, it's a roll call with Shane Dandan. So we ask her things like, what's the last thing you ate? So chocolate. What's the last thing you did last night? And if you read the article, she kind of elaborates a little bit more about what she did. Next slide. So show us your most recent OOTD. Yeah, or who are your favorite people in the world? So this is another way for fans to kind of get to know the artist in a fresher way than just reading text. Next. How best to work with us? Because I know here we have artists here, we've got managers, we've got people from DSPs, we've got government agencies here. So we're just going to share with you a few things that us at Bandwagon we're looking for. Next. So this is an interesting graphic into how at Bandwagon, how we think about content. So I think most people think of media as a place for being informed about latest news, which is correct. And that's actually the part here, the functional part of being a media, which is update me. So we're definitely looking for some of your stories here. You know, if you do, later I'll just put our address and how you can reach us. But we are keen to hear about stories that keep people updated about what you're doing. But beyond that, there's actually a lot of other areas of stories that we are keen to look at. And studies that even the BBC have done have shown that just Update Me actually is just 15% of global content in terms of writing. 85% is actually about other areas as well. So let me share an example. So for example, give me perspective. It could be an expert opinion on something. So let's say if we get Joey Ayala to take us through what's the history of the Philippines folk music industry and where is it headed. So that's a give me perspective article. Educate me. So let's say instead of saying Four of Spades just open for Panic at the Disco. So we can say the importance of visuals, communication, because Four of Spades, they're very 70s inspired. Their attire, their whole branding is very on point, and that's helped them to really create a very loyal fan base. So we could get them to talk about that. So that's an Educate Me article. So Amuse Me, if we use the Four of Spades example, maybe we put Four of Spades in a kitchen for one day, and here's what they created. So that's a kind of Amuse Me kind of content which we could do. We could look at in terms of writing, we could do photographs, we could do videos. Inspire me. So maybe someone in the band went through something. Maybe, you know, he was maybe a failed business person or, you know, was struggling to make ends meet. So how could we take that story and make it inspiring? So that's an Inspire Me article. And keep me on trend. I think if people want to know trends. I guess that's why many of you are here today. We're looking at, okay, what's the next step for the Philippines music industry? So Keep Me on Trend is exactly that. So we could be talking about what's the state of EDM in Philippines music industry. And that's an example of Keep Me on Trend. So if you can see these range, some are more emotional, like what I talked to you about Amuse Me. Some are more functional. And some are more inward looking. So like here, we are all music industry, so I would say it's fairly inward looking. But then there are also content that is very outward, that maybe anyone who's not in the music industry could be interested in. So that's the way we look at stories. So if you have any ideas after this talk, the next slide is our address. Yeah, we love to hear your stories. So hit us up. We're on all socials at bandwagon.ph. If anything comes to your mind, let us know. We're always looking for unique stories that we can tell, not just from Philippines, but include other people who are here as well.